This was in his second year at university, and he worked the night register at a supermarket on the edge of Utsunomiya, out past where the last apartment blocks give way to rice fields and the street lights get further apart. 11 at night until 6 in the morning, 4 shifts a week. The receipt roll gets changed at the start of every shift, whether it needs it or not. Store policy, so no one ever runs out at 4 in the morning. He liked the job well enough. The store hummed at that hour in a way it didn't in the daytime. The drink fridges cycling on and off, the floor polisher smell from the evening clean still hanging in the aisles. He'd taken the shift, mostly for the pay differential. Supermarkets ran a higher rate after midnight, and his scholarship covered tuition, but not much past it. Not the apartment share near campus, not the extra semester he was quietly hoping he wouldn't have to explain to his parents. Most of his classmates worked convenience stores closer to the university. He liked that his store sat far enough out that almost nobody he actually knew ever walked in. Most nights between 1 and 4, nobody came in at all. So he noticed the old man the first week, and he kept noticing him after that, because the old man was the only reliable thing in 6 hours of nothing. 2:40, near enough to set a watch by. The door would chime, and it would be him, small, upright, a dark wool coat buttoned to the collar even in summer, moving like someone who had walked a long way and wasn't tired of it yet. He went straight to the chilled case for the same bento every time, the shrimp katsu one near the end of the shelf, and set it on the counter, and said the same 4 words in the same quiet voice. 2 pairs, please. Chopsticks. Always 2 pairs for a bento that fed 1 person. The young man never asked why. You don't. On a night shift, you let a person be a person, and you take the small kindness of a face you already know showing up on schedule in a stretch of night that otherwise belongs to nobody. He started looking forward to it. 2:40 came to mean something was still moving in the world. The old man always paid in coins. That part he noticed early too, though it took longer to feel like anything. Not bills, ever. Coins, counted out already loose in one closed hand before he reached the counter, and always the exact amount, to the yen, no need for change back. A man who had done the sum before he walked in. What snagged, the first time, was the warmth. The young man's palm was open under the old man's hand as the coins dropped into it, the way you cup your hand for change without thinking about it. And the coins were warm, not pocket warm, warmer than that, warmer than loose change usually gets even against skin. The particular warmth of something held tight in a closed fist for a long time. He remembered thinking it in the 2 seconds it took to drop them in the drawer. Someone's been holding these. Then the door chimed on the old man's way out, and the register drawer slid shut, and the thought went with it. It was one detail in a shift full of small details, and it didn't ask to be remembered. He decided, without much effort, that it made sense. Old men who walk long distances keep their hands closed around whatever's in their pockets, and pocket warmth adds up over a cold road. Some people run warm anyway. His own grandfather's hands had always run hot, even in winter, even asleep, and exact change wasn't strange at all. Some people simply hated carrying weight they didn't need, counted it out at home before they left, arrived with the sum already solved. The receipt roll got changed, the drink fridges cycled. A coworker complained one slow Tuesday about a customer who tried to return a fish that had clearly sat in someone's freezer for a year, and they both laughed about it at the counter. And the old man's coins were just coins again, a small, fond oddity, the kind of detail that makes a regular a person instead of a routine. It came back to him properly in February, on one of the cold nights. says, "Please," and then the coins dropped loose into the young man's open palm the way they always were. And they were warm, warm the way they always were. Warm against a hand that had clearly just come in from air cold enough to redden skin. Coins that should have been the coldest thing on him and were instead the one warm thing in the whole transaction. He didn't say anything. He counted the coins into the drawer, exact as always, and watched the old man take his bento and his 2 pairs of chopsticks back out into the cold, and stood there afterward with his hand still faintly remembering the warmth, unable to make the 2 facts sit next to each other. The chance to check came from something unrelated. A district manager wanted the week's fastest-selling bento tallied by hour for a stock order, and the young man got handed the job because he was the one who always closed the late shift. He pulled the register's transaction journal, the long paper record everything gets printed to before it's summarized into the day's report, and started going down it hour by hour. He wasn't looking for the old man. He found the gap anyway, the way you notice a missing tooth with your tongue before you decide to go looking for it. 240 came and went on the printed roll with nothing in it. No bento, no chopstick add-on, no coin tender logged at all. The next line jumped straight to a transaction at 319. A different customer, a different item. He told himself he'd misread the timestamp and pulled the roll from 2 nights before. Same gap. Then the week before that, he went back 6 closing reports. Every night, he could specifically remember the old man coming in, cross-checking the printed time against the shift's own clock-in log, so he couldn't blame a broken till clock. 6 nights, 6 identical 240 transactions that had happened, that he had rung up with his own hands, that existed nowhere on paper. What made it worse, not better, was the drawer. He pulled every one of those nights' closing counts too. Every single drawer had balanced exactly, to the yen, at the end of shift. No overage, no shortage. The old man's coins sitting in the till total as correctly as anyone else's money ever had. The register remembered the sum, it just didn't remember him. He even called the register vendor's support line on his lunch break, framing it as a technical question, whether a printer jam could skip a transaction line without flagging an error anywhere. The technician told him no, actually. A skipped line always triggers an automatic fault code in the maintenance log, timestamped to the second, and there was no fault code anywhere near 240 on any of the 6 nights he asked about. Nothing had jammed, nothing had glitched. The machine insisted, in its own dry, technical language, that everything it was supposed to record, it had recorded correctly. He asked a coworker who'd covered 2 of those closes for him once, casually, if she remembered an old man, wool coat, always in around 240 for a shrimp katsu bento. She thought about it for a second and said she didn't think so. Said the store was usually dead as a grave that late, and she'd have noticed a regular, because regulars were the only thing worth noticing that hour. She wasn't being unkind. She genuinely didn't know what he was talking about. He kept the drawer differently after that, though he couldn't have said what he thought he was preparing for. 240 came and went, and the door didn't chime. He watched the parking lot the way he had that cold night in February. Sodium lights, empty spaces, his own breath at the glass, and nothing crossed it. 3 o'clock. 3:19. The timestamp he now knew too well from the journal roll. Nothing. He told himself the old man was sick, or had moved, or had simply chosen a different hour for reasons that were entirely his own, and none of the young man's business. He kept telling himself some version of that for the rest of the week, and the old man never came back. Not at 240, not at any hour, not once. What stayed with him afterward wasn't the missing transaction. In the end, it was the chopsticks. 2 pairs, every single night, for a bento sized for 1 person, and in however many months of watching him eat nothing else, carry nothing else, the young man had never once seen him hand the second pair to anybody, or unwrap it, or set it down across from him at any surface the young man could see through the front glass. He had simply asked for two every night, the way you'd ask for something on someone else's behalf. The coin dish by the register still runs warm sometimes, in the dead hour past 2, when nobody's hands have been anywhere near it. Most nights, he tells himself, it doesn't mean anything, and doesn't check. Then he closes up alone at 4, and before he leaves, he sets 2 pairs of chopsticks out by the register anyway, just in case, and slides them back